What is being nice costing you? Numbers
Yes.
are really about us and what we are willing and not willing to do. Get out of survival mode. Take care of your nervous system first, because you can't make good decisions if one more person says, I'm not finishing something because I'm a perfectionist. I'm going to call them.
Welcome to this Unfiltered Deep Dive with Dr. Audrey Schnell, the emotional intelligence guru. She spent 40 years cracking the code on why we sabotage ourselves and how to stop it. We're going to learn that today. Here's a jaw dropper. Only 36% of us have solid emotional intelligence. So today we're going to rip into the messy truth. We're going to get into emotions, boundaries, and then finally how we actually get things done in our lives. So whether you're running a business or just running your life, let's dive in. Thank you, Dr. Schnell, for being on today.
Thank you. I'm honored to be here. Thanks for having me.
I want to get into, I had went through your blog, and Audrey, you have one where it calls boundaries the ultimate power move. Why do so many of us suck at setting them? Why like for me, it's like I've done a lot of emotional intelligence work, and it's like I'm not good enough to set a boundary. I've never felt good enough. So what's the one boundary you tell everyone listening to lock down today?
That's a great. Well, the first thing, I'm going to answer that in a slightly different way, if that's okay.
That's great. Yes.
So people often think about boundaries as being about the other person. Boundaries are really about us and what we are willing and not willing to do, what we're comfortable with, what we're not comfortable with, and need. I mean, humans are, most of us healthy ones, are social animals. And it's a good thing to be nice and respond to what people need and want to help. But we have to take care of ourselves first. And so that can mean having a good boundary, a really simple one, and that I see a lot, especially among entrepreneurs, is having no boundaries on their time. Especially now with cell phones and everything. It's like, my clients text me at 6 a.m. with an emergency and I answer it. I'm like, well, are they, it's like that. If this is an emergency, call 911. If they're bleeding, tell them to call 911. This is not an emergency.
Right.
You need to not see. So it's redefining and stepping back a little bit and going, okay, what's really going on here? Sometimes it's our need to be liked. Sometimes it's our own hypervigilance, and we just need to redefine it. So, for example, this exact same thing happened with a client yesterday. And she's like, I'm burning out. I'm answering emails and I'm texting all these emergencies. I'm like, let's take a look at this. Is it really an emergency? Well, no. Okay. Most people just want to know that you saw it and you'll respond. So what about just a simple automated text that says, saw your email or text and I will respond as soon as possible? For most of us, if we're on the receiving end of that, it's like, okay, I know she saw it and she's going to get back to me. I'm not wondering if she saw it or wondering if she's going to help me. So just, this isn't an emergency. Nobody's dying.
Yeah, I love that. And, one of the things that I see a lot of times, especially when it comes to entrepreneurs in time, is this need to be wanted or liked. And so by having this trauma, drama, high cortisol levels, addiction, you can see it with like wait staff too, people that are, when the restaurant's real busy, there's this addiction to being busy, if that makes sense.
No, there's an addiction to being busy. I did an email, it might be on my website, I don't know. And the subject line was, what is being nice costing you?
Yes.
And oftentimes we have to realize, what's the secondary gain here? Why am I being nice? Sometimes it's much more about me and wanting to feel good about myself, or out of desperation, if I don't respond right away, this person won't hire me or won't keep me. And so we kind of go into survival mode. We can't survive on our own. So even the need to be nice can be a survival instinct. Do what's best for the tribe, or do what's best for the leader or somebody I think I need. I'm going to die, And so it comes from a lot of places. One, I'm just going to pivot just a little bit, because one of the interesting things that happens, especially for, I'm sure a lot of your audience and my clients who are pretty good already, they've learned a lot of this.
Right.
is, it's often presented as you need to learn to say no to the things you don't want to do. What gets many entrepreneurs and other high achieving clients in trouble is learning to say no to things they do want to do.
Yeah, that's hard.
Take them off their trajectory, overload themselves. It's a distraction. It's going to keep me from getting my goal, or this, I don't really have the time budget for this. So learning to say no to the shiny things or the things that sound really good that, maybe we actually want is much harder.
Yeah, I talked to a billionaire once and he told me that he's like, the biggest thing I have to do now is I have so many amazing opportunities every single day. So he said, I really had to learn to say no for amazing things that were there.
I mean, they all sound great, and we're interested, we're smart, we're curious. It's like, I want to do all these things. Well, not now. And so saying no to the things we do want to do. And I've seen that as a trap for many entrepreneurs.
Do you know what are some of the things that you coach on saying no without kind of seeming like a a-hole or whatever, Yeah, how do you approach that, especially if it's like, maybe it's I've seen this. I had somebody actually tell me this one, well, you're kind of an alpha male type leader and I hate to tell you no. How do you tell a boss or a coworker or somebody that may be introverted, how do you tell them no in a good way?
So this is the kind of emotional intelligence piece, the empathy piece, always presented as a win-win. So, for example, real simplistic, let's say your boss asks you to do something. If you can, say no, but make it sound like a win-win. Like, yeah, I could do this, but so-and-so would be a much better choice because it will serve you more if this other person does it.
And that's good.
Or,
yes.
Yeah, I can do it. Which of these other important things that you gave me to do you want me to stop? Or if it's something, not so much a boss, but if it's a client comes to me and says, I want to go do this thing next. I want to go take this whatever course or do this, do that. I'm like, first of all, I always make sure we have a real clear goal. So clarity comes into play, and I'm like, okay, let's think about this for a minute. Will this move the needle towards your goal or away from your goal? And then I don't make the decision for them. I just get them to see the consequences of each choice. Is this an emotional choice? Is this a business choice? Here's a good one. Is this a business choice I'm trying to make emotionally?
Yes.
So
that's so good. I know you've got you got a Ph.D. in epidemiology, in biostatistics, and you've got an MA in clinical psychology. I mean, that's a curveball combo in and of itself.
Not really. I'll tell you, so it was a really interesting kind of path, and a kind of passive one. I kind of went with where life took me. So I started out as a clinical psychologist. I did my internship in an inpatient state psychiatric hospital.
Wow.
Yeah, they're not even around anymore. And so I was a garden variety psychotherapist, and then I had my supervisor, because I worked in one of my next jobs was in a hospital. My supervisor was leaving the position to go take a position in a research center. It was it was the first federally funded Alzheimer's research center. So this was in the East, and she wanted me to come with her. So I went still as a clinical psychologist, but part of what we were doing was research. And so I got really interested in research. And this was just as computers were starting to come into offices. And it was the funniest thing. I just knew I'd be really good at computers. And so I ended up getting data analysis and all the computer stuff. And so I moved more and more into research. And at the time I'm thinking, wow, I can really help a lot of people at one time versus just one person at a time if I go in a broader direction. So and I was always kind of sciencey, thought I'd go to medical school. So it just kind of fit to go into epidemiology, biostatistics, and that just took me on a whole other path, which has been good. So, and I think I mentioned this to you. So one of the ways it turned out to be a really good combination is I can bring a lot of science, evidence-based information, techniques, tools to my practice, whether it's about nutrition or medicine or even, is there any evidence that meditation really helps? So I'm really good at looking at the research and being able to filter out what's true, what's not true. Why is this not making sense? Why is there so many contradictions? And also just the whole process of getting a dissertation takes, regardless of what field it's in, takes a lot of discipline and structure and getting things done. Boy, you learn not to be a perfectionist. Just, the only good one is a done one. And so it has taught me so much, and this applies to everything. So I really want people to hear this. At the start of a really overwhelming big project, whether it's a dissertation or running a marathon or whatever that I can't imagine finishing, it taught me that, okay, I can trust if I just jump in, if I just start, each step will become clear after that. And that is a huge lesson, especially, well, for anybody, but sometimes especially for entrepreneurs who are taking on really every day something new that could be scary and overwhelming.
Yeah, and you talk about that, on your blog about emotional intelligence isn't just for entrepreneurs or CEOs. It's for really anyone breathing. What's the one EI skill you think that we're all sleeping on that you feel that could change our lives on a practical daily aspect?
Empathy. Empathy, definitely. I mean, certainly one of the foundations of emotional intelligence and mental health is self-awareness, but empathy is huge.
So this is something that's really, I've been really working on in my own life, understanding. And I think the older you get, if you really practice this, especially self-awareness, understanding empathy and what it is exactly. When a lot of people nowadays, it seems like we're in a land of abundance, but we have all these mental health issues. And a lot of people seem to be kind of hung up on themselves constantly. I'm the victim. I'm worried about myself. I'm worried about my boss. I'm worried. Constant. If you're narcissistic, how do you have empathy? It doesn't seem like it works.
Okay, so first of all, this is one of my pet peeves.
I like this, yeah.
Every divorcee thinks her husband was a narcissist.
Oh, right. Yes.
Or a psychopath. And so I try to get people definitely out of abuser or victim mentality. It's so much of our culture, so much of everything we see. So I try to get people out of that right away. And people, it's a seesaw. Nobody's the victim. Nobody's the abuser all the time. They go back and forth. And I think one of the last things you said you might ask me about is what is like the one emotional intelligence thing that I would tell people to do if I had to scream it. There's a lot. I could stand up on the mountain and scream for like hours, but I would say get out of survival mode. Take care of your nervous system first, because you can't make good decisions. You can't have empathy. You can't even have self-awareness if you're in survival mode. If you're scared, if you're tired, if you're worn out, burned out, whatever, you're not going to make good decisions. You're not going to be able to think clearly. You're going to go into child mode and throw tantrums, whatever it is. So make sure, and I don't usually like cliches, but the put on the oxygen mask first is a good one.
Having self-care. When it goes to, because I really love this, because I think it's so important when I talk to people constantly on this, especially leaders, this victim perpetrator thing, and then the empathy aspect of it, because we can get so caught up in the daily tasks of things that we do that we kind of look at people as, did you perform or not?
Yeah.
Instead of having empathy for them as a human.
And
how does that work?
Well, empathy doesn't mean you get a hall pass.
Of course,
empathy
right.
Doesn't mean, empathy is understand. So my clients say, well, what's the difference between empathy and like sympathy? Or it's like, you don't feel what they feel. You understand what they feel. You're not joining them in their pit of despair or going, well, let me tell you what happened to me when that happened. But so some hallmarks, and we're geared to win. The culture, instinct, let's say we're married and I want to have a really good, deep conversation with you, let's say about our finances.
Mm-hmm.
My goal is to really be on the same page with you. I love you. I want to really connect. So we start talking and I'm like, well, I think we really shouldn't buy a new couch. And you're like, I want a new couch. And what do you mean I can't buy a couch? You bought this. So We shift goals. Don't want to connect. Now we want to win.
That's huge. Yes.
I'm right. You're wrong. That's what gets people in trouble. So it really is about remembering your goal, staying connected. Don't try to win, try to connect. Start with, okay, let's start where we're both on the same page. We want to be able to retire at 70, right? So let's start there where we're in agreement and work from there. So don't try to win. Don't try to be right. Have curiosity. Instead of coming back with a statement, sometimes we can just ask, what's that about? What made you say that? Why do you feel that way? I'm curious that you think I'm mad at you. I'm not mad at you. And really get curious and try to understand to be understood. And again, it doesn't mean agreement. It doesn't mean people get a hall pass, but it starts to build a different relationship. And one of the things I love to say that really sometimes pisses people off, and it's on my website as well, I have a little banner that says successful people, the most successful people are manipulative. And that's like people like go, oh, he doesn't say that. And I'm like, whoa, wait a minute. Let me tell you what that really means. And actually, it's important for two reasons. One, manipulation does not mean deceit or lying. It means to handle something skillfully. So what does that look like? Well, gee, I'm going to sell my house, so I'm going to stage it to sell. I just have an in-person interview, and I'm going to send you a handwritten thank you. All the little things that we do. I'm in a class. I want the teacher to notice me. I'm going to go sit in the front row and ask questions so that when I need help, that teacher knows who I am. That is manipulation in the truest sense. It means I've got empathy. I know what the other person might be thinking, how they're going to respond. What really upsets me, and I think is really detrimental, is when people use it, the word manipulation, when somebody is actually lying and deceitful. It's like minimizing, not really talking about what's actually going on. It's like a simple word that is masking what's really happening.
Well, I mean, especially if you go into instant victim mode,
then
of course you have a justification to lie, supposedly, because you're the victim.
Well, yeah. Or
which is wrong, of course.
Yeah. And it's like, we're all so afraid that, well, they're going to manipulate me. Well, what does that mean? I mean, do you think they're going to lie to you? Do you think you have no power? Do you think you're so stupid you won't be able to say no? You know, if you think somebody's lying to you, say something.
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
Don't say they're manipulating me. It's not accurate.
Well, the word, like you just, I can imagine like a race car driver manipulating the car to perfection to win the race.
Yeah, what do chiropractors do? They manipulate.
Yes.
Fine.
100%. Yeah.
I studied Latin. Think manual. That's the root of manipulation, handling something skillfully.
That's so good. I love that definition. I know when it comes to entrepreneurs, I don't know, you're one, I'm one. We're wired to hustle, like to work a lot. But you talk about how we rarely finish projects.
Yeah.
And then you talked about like we're secretly scared to wrap things up. I like that you went real deep on that into the fear.
Yeah, it's true.
Can you explain that fear and kind of go into that from an emotional intelligence standpoint?
Sure. So there's usually a couple of reasons why, or maybe even more than a couple. They all relate to fear. It can be fear of it won't be good enough. It's why a lot of people don't finish their dissertations. They think they need a Nobel Prize instead of just making it done. So it can be fear of the final product. It could be fear of, sometimes like people will drop out of school right before they're going to graduate. Why? Because I don't know what I'm going to do after I graduate. I understand the student thing, but I have no idea what's next. And sometimes, again, it can be, the what next. It's a little different scenario, but it has the same sort of effect, which is, people will lose weight for an event. I want to look good for my high school reunion. And then after the reunion, it's like, there's nothing more. I haven't mapped out anything. So let's not get to the end because we still need to keep going. And so there's lots of reasons, but it usually has to do with the fear of what's next or the fear of it not being good enough. So I'll get on my soapbox about one more thing that I'm guessing you see as much as I do, which is if one more person says I'm not finishing something because I'm a perfectionist, I'm going to call it. I'm serious about it. I'm just going to say it. I'm going to call bullshit.
Yeah, no, I love that. Yes.
It's never about perfectionism. perfectionism is not a bad thing either. I want my heart surgeon to be a perfectionist.
Yes.
What it's often really about is commitment. I'm committed to this and I'm going to finish it. It's really avoidance and it's fear and lack of commitment. And sometimes it's selfish. It's like if I have something, this comes up a lot with entrepreneurs, especially health coaches and people in some kind of service mode. They'll be like, well, I don't want to, put my message out there until it's perfect. Well, first of all, if you don't put something out there, you're never going to get any feedback. So it's actually a really stupid reason.
Right.
Doing it. And you're really selfish. You could be out there helping people and you're not doing it. It's like standing on the bow of a ship and you've got this life preserver and somebody's drowning and you're like, well, I don't know if I'm a good enough thrower. I mean, really? That's pretty selfish.
Yeah, no, I get that. The fear, especially with perfectionism, like you said, not only fear of not being good enough, but the fear of commitment.
Yeah.
A lot of that translates into relationships.
Yeah. Everything is about relationships. And, one of my other pet peeves is when people say, well, you shouldn't care what other people think. I'm sorry, we're kind of wired to care about what other people think. And to keep trying to eliminate that from your brain or your life is probably a useless waste of energy. Of course we care. We care about a lot of things. What is different is who am I caring about? And that's stopping me from doing something I want really and need to do.
Yeah, I've noticed that with relationships in particular when, even in my own life or talking to other people, it's like I can handle this person. They're not good for me, but I can handle them because they're comfortable and they're not challenging any of my fears. They're not challenging. I don't have to commit to them. It's just what you said. It's that same thing.
Yeah. And that's okay. I mean, there's nothing wrong with that. Some things don't deserve to be perfect. I would wasted a whole day painting a table that did not need a whole day to be painted. It needed 5 minutes. So what's this perfectionism? I mean, it's like, think about it. How good does this have to be?
And then why like for me, for instance, in the not being good enough, that's a fuel that works, but it's a cheap fuel because then I'm operating in fear and I'm doing things to be in hopes that I'm good enough. So I'll work the 20-hour day or the 15-hour day.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I've got a big handle on it now, but I've became successful through it, but it wasn't good for, like you said, and I think is really important. And maybe you can, whether it's evolutionary psychology or whatever, our nervous system.
So hustle is not a bad thing. It's just knowing when to hustle.
Yes.
When should I hustle? When should I not hustle? When do I have to? And okay, God, I'm just really on this pet peeve thing today.
That's good. I love them all. Yeah, let's do them all.
One more person tells me they work better under pressure. Nobody works better under pressure. They just work. You rely on pressure to get it done. Nobody works better under pressure.
Why do we have to have that? Why do we procrastinate and have to have pressure?
Because we're relying on urgency to get something done rather than a healthier reason, whether that be motivation, inspiration, looking at my fears. Why am I not looking at my taxes until April 14th? And I think there's still some childlike association with discipline being a bad thing. I don't, well, I want freedom. Well, let me tell you, discipline equals freedom. You haven't done your taxes on April 14th. And you got to sit down and do your taxes. And your best friend goes, wow, I got 2 tickets to fly to Paris for lunch. And you're like, shit, I can't go because I haven't done my taxes. Discipline equals freedom.
Yeah, I love that. That's so true. And it also kind of like, for me, being disciplined is it's like, I'll just say, I need to take my emotions out of this in this moment and just go do this.
Yeah. Yes.
Because it's like my emotion wants to, my ego wants to play this tricks with me. Like, well, you'll be fine. Eat this. It's okay. You've earned it. It plays all these little tricks in my head.
Oh yeah. And those voices that, I don't want to change, let's just stay at the weight we are. Let's eat what we're normally eating, etc. And discipline will set you free. It's powerful. It's empowering. And from a practical standpoint, it's easier to keep up and catch up.
That's so true. I wanna get into the dumbest emotional trap you see people fall into, and we'll get into how to climb out. But what do you think the dumbest emotional trap most people fall into?
The dumbest. Oh wow, that's such a good question. There's so many. The dumbest emotional trap, I want to say this is what's coming up right at this moment, is worry and being selfish.
Yeah, let's go more into that. That's so cool.
So worry, I heard described as praying for the outcome you don't want. It just never puts you in survival mode. You can't think straight. It robs you of energy. It serves no purpose.
Isn't worry a form of selfishness, though? Because you're just obsessively thinking about yourself all the time.
Well, but it could be worry about anything. You know, I could be worried about the war in the Ukraine. And
Yes, of course,
no,
yeah.
worry doesn't serve a purpose other than to make me feel like I'm doing something. Like I should be worried. You know, I should be worried.
Right.
Or I'm irresponsible. So worry and being selfish. And what comes to mind as an example of selfishness is what I often tell, because I work with a lot of coaches. I coach a lot of coaches, and they're all just preoccupied with, am I going to get a result for my client? Or, maybe my client can't afford me, or what are they going to think of me, etc. It's really a form of selfishness. Like you could help this person. It's about them, not you. Or sometimes it's you're making a decision for your client. It's up to your client to decide whether they can afford you or not.
Yes.
So that's really disempowering them. And when I say that to people, especially people who are like really big on personal development and being evolved, I'm like, that's not evolved.
Yes. Yeah.
And then they're like, whoa, yeah, you're right.
You have a clinical psychology degree, so you understand that aspect of it is not to make this. It's from the doctor in psychology that in and of itself, it does so much detriment to the patient is to make a decision for them.
Yeah. And even when it comes to, like interviews or not interviews, but, a new session with a client, and people, coaches will say, especially new coaches will say, I'm afraid to do this because I don't know what to say. What will I say? I'm like, you're worried about the wrong thing. If you listen to what they're saying, you will know exactly what to say because you've listened to them. It's not about you.
Yeah, I love that. That's my biggest pet. I'll say one of my pet peeves. That's my biggest pet peeve with leadership is no one listens.
Yeah.
And you can't coach someone if you're not listening to them.
And this also came up in a coaching session I had yesterday with an entrepreneur boss. And it was about leading. We have to lead ourselves as well. So, and this was, I think, one of the questions on your sheet. It's like one of the most powerful things to ask yourself is, if I was my employee, would I fire myself? And that wakes people up right away.
Yeah, that's a great question. Yes.
And then it's like, and I did this exercise with a bunch of my clients. It was so much fun. I said, okay, sometimes that's because I don't know my job description. What is your job description? And sometimes these are people who, some of my retired clients, I'm like, write your job description. It could be in charge of healthy eating, in charge of social gatherings. Write your job description and then think about job descriptions. What do they usually say? We want someone who has great social skills or great technical skills. Think about what's great about you. Write your job description. Clients had so much fun with this.
Yeah, I love that. What do you feel like whenever because this is really important. I think a lot of people don't understand this. And I want to kind of tie what you're saying into emotional traps.
Sure.
Because we all fall into them, every single one of them, every single one of us.
Yeah, absolutely.
What do you see as far as when it comes to boundaries, emotional traps, emotional intelligence in the sense of trying to, because a lot of times what I'm trying to get at is how do we recognize these triggers without being dumb and falling into the bullshit of, here I am yelling again at this another boy. Here I am again yelling at my wife. Here I am yelling at one of my kids. And then 30 minutes later, after I blowtorched everything, then I catch it and be like, well, that was really dumb. Why didn't I listen or do this? How do we get out of that trap and with those emotional triggers?
Well, I want to say two of my favorite things to say first, which is number one, feelings aren't facts. And number two, don't trust your feelings.
Why are they so bad? Like what?
If we could trust our feelings, and everybody's like, oh, well, just go find your passion. If passion were a good thing, the divorce rate wouldn't be 50%.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, we just all be hedonists. Yeah.
Yeah, no, and you're not going to find your passion sitting on your couch reading a book. So it goes back to actually, I would say, a couple of things that we've already talked about. And thank you, because I can go off on tangents. So let's circle back. Take care of your nervous system. You are far more likely to go into what I call the toddler mode, screaming child mode, if you're hungry or tired. It's where we don't have good nervous system control of our impulses, our inhibitors, things we know we shouldn't do. So it starts with that, and it starts also with self-awareness. So if there's an ongoing problem and you're not dealing with it, like my kids always do this or my wife always does that, then you're kind of not dealing with the real underlying problem. These are ongoing triggers. So a lot of it is self-awareness, and not pushing down feelings. So it's I had a bad day at work, I'm going to go home and kick the dog. We have such a tendency to say we're fine when we're not fine.
Yes.
And that is a huge problem. And we can totally act out of character because we're stressed, or we're trying to avoid feeling something, or we're not self-aware enough to know what triggers us, what we need to deal with. And I would say the other real, trap is don't trust your feelings. They're information. But I feel like a failure. Well, yeah, you may, but are you a failure? Let's get your brain working here. What have you succeeded at? Well, I've succeeded this, and this. Okay, you're not a failure. Feeling like a failure does not make you a failure.
Why is society push feelings so much? Like now, especially with these younger kids and stuff, it's all feelings. Everything's I feel this way, so I can't do this.
Part of it is the pendulum swinging the other way.
Right, of course.
It went from really restrictive to disinhibited is one, and feelings are easy. So I'll give you a classic example. I don't know if it's a classic example, but it's probably a good example. You're going to buy a refrigerator. You're in Home Depot. There's a million refrigerators. Which refrigerator do you buy? Well, it takes a lot of work to look at each refrigerator and go, oh, this one is this efficient. This is this efficient. This one is this one. This and good reviews. This was it. Well, which one feels like the right one? Easier to answer.
Mm-hmm.
We avoid. And it's not because we're bad people. We are just wired to conserve energy. Doing the easy thing is always easier.
Yeah, of course, right. Yes.
So sometimes
that makes sense. So the evolution psychology part of it is like observe energy, don't waste time in doing this. So your feeling just takes over, whatever that is.
Right.
Some chemical in your brain or whatever takes over, because you're so right about that. People need to get this and need to understand this. Because everybody will be like, well, I just felt this way, or my intuition told me this, or, I just knew at first sight, all that's bullshit.
And we have to learn, and we don't necessarily always get it right, but we've got to learn to distinguish when we should make a decision based on some intuition. And I'm not making this shit up. I mean, there are lots of books that talk about this. I can't think of all their names in a lot of different ways, but that we have basically two brain systems, a higher one and a lower one. And sometimes we use this one and sometimes we use that one. And sadly, our survival brain, our lizard brain, which has been around a lot longer than our frontal cortex, will win. It's just, it's wired. It's had more. That's why when people say rewire your brain, but you can rewire your whole body. The body's been around for a long time. And so we get caught up in these, these platitudes, but I know when a decision should be a feeling decision and when it shouldn't. I just had I'm getting work done in my office. So the contractor was here and said, do you want the shelf at this height or do you want the shelf at that height? Well, I had no logical basis for making that decision because I don't know what I'm going to put on them yet. So I just went with what felt right.
Right. Yeah.
What
aesthetics, whatever. Yeah.
Yeah. So decision making is, can be complex, and we all want to make good decisions. Sometimes most of the time we don't know if the decision is good or bad until after we made it. So I love Yogi Berra, the baseball player who came up with all those, it's deja vu all over again. He also said, don't make the wrong mistake. So I just don't want to make the wrong mistake this time.
Yeah, that's so good. Yes. How do you stop overthinking when it comes to decision making like this? Because that seems to be the biggest stymie with everybody.
I think, people do tend to fall into two categories. And I'm talking about valid and reliable psychological tests, not human design or Myers-Briggs, which we won't go into that. People hate me. But we tend to be either very analytical and thinkers, or we tend to be more idea and doers. And we have to have some flexibility. And you find a lot of, thinkers, and I draw a lot because I'm a thinker, so I draw them to me. And a lot of them, go into business because they're smart, but they're not always great action takers. And in general, this is one problem with visualizing things. Every time it says visualize, what you want. Well, sometimes when we visualize what we want, our brain thinks we've already done it.
Yes. Yeah. 100%.
Nothing happens. So it's great if you're Michael Phelps and practicing swimming. It's not so good if you need to start writing emails and, well, I envisioned it, or I need to do this, and now I've had the dopamine hit from doing it in my brain, so I don't really have to do it now. So we need to discipline. It's discipline to get started. And there are some tricks. I mean, think of yourself as a kid. What would you do? Well, I'm going to give myself 15 minutes. I'm going to set a timer, and I'm going to give myself 15 minutes to do this. And one psychological tendency to be really aware of as human beings, write this down, folks, we overestimate how hard something is going to be, and we underestimate how good we're going to feel after we've done it.
Why do you think we do that? Because that's so true. I do that all the time. And then I'm like, well, shit, that took me 10 minutes. Why did I procrastinate on this?
I know. Have you ever woken up and gone, oh, shit, all these errands to do today? And then you do them and like, oh, that wasn't so bad at all.
Exactly.
It's, again, that survival instinct. Conserve energy and be aware of danger. What's good is not going to kill you, but what could be dangerous and exertion might kill me. So we tend to avoid and overestimate how hard something is going to be.
Yeah, and I played a little game in my head with my ego, and I was like, how far comfortable should I be? Should I just sit on the couch all day long, don't go anywhere, and just eat chips and ice cream? And then it's like, you'll kill me. If I give in to my comfort constantly, I'll just die early.
And one of the things I've really got my clients focusing on right now is don't try to form new habits. Habits are hard, and they tend to not work well. I mean, everybody wants to tell you to go, develop good habits. Does it take 30 days? Does it take 90? Do I start with small habits? Yeah. Habits are hard. What is much easier, and I'll give you I love this example because this happened to me yesterday. I tell them, think about who you are. Let your identity. I mean, do you have to stop yourself from stealing things? No. Why?
You're right. Yeah, exactly.
Do you have cravings to steal? Well, no, because you're not a thief. So I was scrolling through, guilty as charged, I was scrolling through Facebook yesterday, and I'm thinking to myself, what do I tell my clients? These ads are geared to draw you in, to make you not, want to stop scrolling. It's just like the food is hyper palatable. They're geared to make you keep scrolling. They want average people to just keep scrolling. And I thought, shit, I do not want to be an average person. I put the phone down. I am not an average person. And it was so easy. And it's like, nope, that's not me.
Yeah, that's so good. Whether it's, like you said, whether it's the food or not going to the gym or going for a walk, whatever it be, just having that, like, no, because it's so easy to be in the top 10% nowadays.
Yeah. And it works with really most things, even my clients who are challenged to eat healthier. If you think of yourself as a really healthy eater, you are much less likely to drive through McDonald's because you allow yourself to feel the discomfort as you pull into the drive-through and go, oh God, I know I shouldn't be doing this. What if somebody sees me? Yada, yada, yada. You're much more likely to get out of line or not even go into line. If you focus on who you are and who you want to be and what's my goal here. What is my goal?
Yeah, that's so good. Putting the goal instead of it trying to become this negative habit thing. I want to get to you, we're getting closer. So I want to ask you these few questions before we're done. We talked earlier about saying no, but I feel like there's a lot of people that can't say no because of guilt. And they have, and I've noticed women do this. I mean, men do this too, but I think women probably, there's this soul sucking friend or relative, especially, or, especially if it's an aunt or a cousin or somebody, and family wise, or a client. And they just, even though it drains them to the hilt, they can't say no to them. How do you do that without like freaking out, keeping your cool? Like, how does that happen?
Well, it takes a lot of self-awareness and really going into, why am I doing this? Because guilt is not necessarily a bad thing. Sometimes I call my sister out of guilt, and that's okay, because I really need to call my sister, and she'll ask me to do things, and sometimes guilt will motivate me, and that's a good thing. So guilt in and of itself is not a bad thing. And sometimes we need to not say no, but we really have to step back. And again, it's the self-awareness. What is this guilt about? Get curious. Will I feel like a bad person and they won't like me? Okay. Is that true? Is that important? Ask yourself some questions. Is this guilt like, yeah, I'm feeling guilty because I know I should do this and don't want to? Is it guilt because they're making me, nobody makes me feel guilty, but you know what I mean? They're piling on why I should do this, but is that true? Do I need to do this? What will it cost me to do this? If it's something I don't want to do, is it going to hurt me more to do it than it's going to hurt them for me to not do it? That sounded kind of complicated, but hopefully got the drift. So it takes some work. It takes some introspection. It takes practice, and it takes learning to accept and sit with feelings that don't feel good.
Yeah. No, I see what you're saying there. So it's just everybody believes their feelings. And I know you said, basically F your feelings.
Because for decision making,
right.
Allow yourself to feel them. So for example, sometimes we give into guilt simply because we're uncomfortable feeling the guilt. I want to stop the guilt.
Well, I don't have enough fortitude to address the situation, so I'll just play victim.
Yeah. And so is it really about, that's the first question, is this really about the other person, or is it about me? That I don't want to feel like a bad person, or I'm going to feel guilty, if I don't do this, and I don't want to feel guilty, even though there's no reason for me to feel guilty, but I don't want to feel that feeling. So I'll say yes. So we really have to, take some introspection and some practice and learning to sit with uncomfortable feelings, which is the basis of emotional intelligence. So while I'll say don't always trust your feelings, I will say you need to feel your feelings, and you need to name them.
Like getting clear on them, like naming them, like, oh, I'm feeling this way because of this, or this, like understanding why I'm feeling that way.
And also identifying it. And that does two things. I mean, why do we say, to 5-year-olds, just tell Johnny you're mad at him. Don't hit him with the baseball bat. We're verbal creatures, and it engages our higher brain. So if I'm acting a certain way, and it's like, I don't know why I'm acting this way. It's like, wait a minute, what am I feeling? Am I agitated? Am I upset about something? Am I mad about something? Am I afraid of something? So, and then naming that, what you name, you can tame.
Yeah, that's so good.
And it's so true. And it's in all our fables and stories and myths. People talk about transformation. Oh, I want transformation. I'm a transformational coach. This is going to be a transformational experience. That even mean? We know what inspiration is. We know what motivation is. Define transformation.
Right. Yeah. Exactly.
I want to be something different. Anyway, another soapbox. But language is the language of transformation.
That makes so much sense. Last question. Sure. We're at the top. We're getting close to the top of the hour, Dr. Schnell. You've seen it all. You've seen everything. 40 years you've been doing this. What are 3 no BS strategies for us to turbocharge our emotional intelligence?
Watch more TV. But I'm serious about that. Watch other people. It's a great way. I stopped whining and being a whiner when I saw other people whining. I'm like, oh my God, I don't want to sound like that.
I see what you're saying. So you're saying watch more TV, watch more movies, and watch the emotional intelligence in them, how they're acting, what they're doing.
Right. Watch other people, watch the characters, watch how they interact, watch how they're behaving, and learn. from that.
That's a good one. That's really good.
And that always surprises people, which is good. What else? Feel your feelings. Be able to sit with your feelings, name them, experience them. It's okay to say you're fine, when you're not feeling fine to the grocery store checkout person. But if your husband or wife asks you if you're fine and you're not, say you're not fine. Own your feelings. And again, this has come to me more and more lately. And it's so basic, but I find it over and over again to be true. Believe in yourself. Forget one of the biggest traps I see people fall into is waiting to feel confident until they do something, which is stupid because you will never feel, and don't go for confidence. Confidence is a feeling. It comes and goes. Go for competence and self-esteem and self-worth and focus on that. Courage, not confidence. Competence, not confidence. That's not a bad word, but I'm just saying don't wait.
No, I love that. Yeah. I had somebody tell me once, it's like, the reason you're so nervous standing up to speak in front of other people is because you've only gone through the presentation 6 or 7 times. They were like, I went through 160 times and then I wasn't nervous. So the confidence is, I'm big on that now. I learned that. Yeah. It's like, I'm just not ready enough yet. I just need to study more or figure stuff out more.
Exactly.
And get the confidence. That creates the confidence.
And be careful about falling into, the danger of, I call it pop psychology. Nobody calls it pop psychology anymore, but I have imposter syndrome. No, you don't. And why are you trying to solve the wrong problem? You don't have imposter syndrome. You just need to go practice more.
Yeah, that's so good. That's so good. Dr. Schnell, I want to have everybody go to your website. I know you do coaching and your blog posts are amazing. How can people get to your work?
Website is simple, audreyschnell.com, Facebook, LinkedIn.
I saw you had a Facebook group and there's LinkedIn. And we'll put all of those different ones in the show notes, and we encourage everybody to support our guests and hop on there. And with the coaching, I saw that there's a calendar and all that different things in there.
Yeah.
So,
and I'm doing, starting April 1st, you'll find it on my website. I'm airing a docuseries interviewing experts on how to have vibrant health, wealth, freedom, and live the life you desire.
I'm going to stay tuned. That's exciting. That starts April 1st, you said?
April 1st. And the information will be on my website, Facebook page, social media.
That's awesome. Well, thank you, Dr. Schnell. Appreciate you giving us. We learned a ton. We basically did 40 years into 1 hour, and I know we could have gone more hours because you have so much information. But I'm glad that you can take this high level information and bring it down to us common folk. So that's awesome. Thank you.
Thank you so much.